All right, everyone. Welcome to today's Agent Spotlight interview with our very own Jen DeCourcy. Jen was one of the first agents to join Choice and is someone that I very much admire and aspire to be like. She's an incredible agent with a ton of production history, and yet she still manages to show up every single day with curiosity, kindness, and humor. She knows her craft and yet continues to fine-tune it through every transaction and has the results to show for it. She was Rookie of the Year her first year in the business, won the Triple Gold Award in 2017 with a whopping 52 closed transactions that year alone. She averages about 4 deals a month, and in her words, is keeping busy but not crazy. She's a natural at farming with a total of 75 closed deals in one neighborhood alone. She sold a total of 333 homes with more pending and has done a whopping $119 million in sales volume in her career history. You heard that correctly. And on top of all of that, she's a mom, a wife, a stager, and an incredible agent. Jen, I'm excited to learn from you today. Thanks for doing this.
Oh my gosh, hi. Is that really me? I can't believe it.
I know
That's a
you've been
lot.
in
That's
it
a
for a
lot of
while and have
volume.
crushed it, but I was looking at numbers yesterday and I was like, astounding.
Like I don't even know how that's possible. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
consistency, I'm sure, but it's not by
Yeah.
chance. That's for sure. Well, I
Yeah.
obviously did a quick intro, but I always like to start
Yes.
by having you guys tell us who you are. So, will you, in your words, tell us who you are, both as
Yes.
an agent and how you show up in this world?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just quick intro. So I am originally from Oregon and I moved here in 1995. I'm married. I've got two sons. I've got two dogs. I live in North Raleigh. And I got into real estate in 2015. So I was kind of hitting my 40s. My kids were more or less out of the house. I mean, not, I mean, out of diapers. And so I was kind of thinking of like what I could do. And I have to say, I think one thing that really kind of sets the tone is that I come from a family that are not like huge achievers. And so even though I knew that people sold real estate, I didn't really think of myself as being like a successful person. So when I got my real estate license, um, which I actually got licensed in like 2004, I think it was, after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But I kind of thought like maybe I'll just work like in an office. I kind of had like the secretarial mindset of like, I'll just do that. I'll do something like minimum wage. I'll just sit and I'll answer phones. I'll file. That's kind of what I was thinking I would want to do. And so I really didn't think about kind of starting my own business. That wasn't where I was at. But before this, I was, teaching at a preschool. I was working at an antique shop, fixing up furniture. And after I got my real estate license, I took my little resume around to all the real estate companies, and none of them were interested in me. So I was like, oh, okay. But one of my neighbors was actually a realtor. I won't name names, but at Remax. And she said, well, I actually need a home stager if you might be interested in that. And so I didn't really know what that was at that time. But since I had worked a lot of retail, I felt like that would be a really fun shift for me. So I kind of learned from her. She had a whole warehouse full of props. And then that's kind of where I got into the home staging. And so I would do like one or two houses a week. I was making with all my three jobs probably like 18,000 a year. So it's like woo woo. But there's a lot of minimum wage, a lot of not great paying jobs, but I stayed really really busy. And then I kind of had this like little snapping point in 2014 where I wanted to do more work. So she was giving me some like um, help with like I was helping buyer agents at Remax, but it was always like Friday night I'm writing a contract, and It was very frustrating because I wasn't really getting paid. I wasn't really getting a lot of work. So I was continuing to do all these multiple jobs. And I had a friend pass away. I had kind of like a little midlife crisis situation. I was just like tired of doing the same crummy thing and making minimum wage. I was just sick of it. It'd be like a 1/4 raise per year as a preschool teacher. Like, yay, what am I going to do with that whole quarter? So I just was like, and I remember I had a girlfriend, and she said to me, well, what's the worst thing that happens? Right? Like, if you fail, you can go back to this. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, I mean, if I fail, I go back to working 3 jobs minimum wage. Okay. Like, that's like, I've got nothing to lose. So I just decided to just dive right in. And I started by, I read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I got started January 5th, 2015, and kind of just drank from the fire hose, did all the things that I thought I needed to do to start my business. I started a database. I put a magnet on the side of my car. I wore a name tag that says like realtor. And I just kind of announced to the world with business cards, networking groups, just tried to do like all the things that I thought would be, help me to become an actual realtor. And then slowly but surely, I remember being trained by this guy, Mark, when I first started. And he was saying, like, you have no idea who your cheerleaders are going to be. And it's not always the people you think. It's like, I remember there was my very first transaction came from a woman that I didn't really know that well. Like, I had gotten together with a group of ladies and had wine one evening, and she was a contact through that. Well, from that one person, I've actually had quite a lot of business because it kind of, she recommended me, and then that person recommended me, and then that person. So that one cheerleader person, I would say, probably ended up being like 9 transactions or something like that. And then sometimes the people that you think are going to be your cheerleaders are not. So it's really interesting to see like who kind of, um, ends up helping you out and who really doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's like about just announcing to the world that you're a realtor and fake it till you make it. Right. And then eventually things start to kind of get rolling. And yeah, should I keep talking? I'm sorry, I
No,
talk a lot.
please. I'm loving it. I've made some notes. I think it's such an incredible story, first of all. I also think that it's so relatable because all of us have ingrained beliefs that we hold about ourselves and what our potential is, and we don't even realize it a lot of times, And so I love that you kind of called that out. And all it takes is like one person believing in us, and then we see behind the curtain, we do all these things, and we're like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, it's actually I could do this,
Yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah,
the blindfold
I,
comes off. And if you're working
yeah.
9 o'clock at night to write offers, you should be making that commission, not be getting the
I'm like, what am I
$600
doing
sale.
here? Yeah. Well, and I remember at the very beginning too, one thing that I thought was super helpful was doing the Bold program, that I think it was like, I can't remember his name, but I went to Bold and just all of you know, the little mantras that they say, life by design, not by default, things like that, that I kind of just needed to hear all those things. And then also, I read a book at the very beginning of my journey called How to Be a Badass by Jen DeCourcy. And she did a lot. I mean, it was a very enjoyable book. I kind of just didn't think I would get anything out of it, quite frankly. But she talked a lot about like being the broke mindset, which I never really thought that I had, but I did. Because if you grow up around broke people, like, I mean, even now, if I talk to family members and old friends from the past, it's like life's so hard, everything's tough. But you know what? It's hard now. It was hard 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. If you talk to my mother, every year of her life has been tough, hard, a struggle, and it's just like I needed to kind of like get that out of my head and realize that
Mhm.
there were possibilities for anyways. And so I feel like I've drunk the Kool-Aid, but I really do believe it now that
When you choose your hard, and mindset is
mhm,
everything. So I love that life by
mhm,
design because life will keep doing its thing. It's how you decide to see it and how you decide to take action. And that's beautiful.
mhm,
I want to take a quick step back. So you mentioned how you got your first deal was at wine
mhm.
night. I have two questions, which is one, do you remember what your first few deals were? How did you get them? And I'm always curious, do you still have
Mhm.
the tag on your car? And if so, have you gotten business from it?
I actually did get one or maybe two deals from that. Yeah, it was funny. I was up at a red light and this lady asked me to roll my window down and she's like, "I'm going to give you a call. I need an agent." I
Cute.
was like, "Okay." So I helped her to buy a house. Yeah, that's only happened one time like that, but I think more importantly, when you're driving that car and you pull up maybe at the grocery store and you maybe see a neighbor or someone that you knew from some other thing, and now they see a sign on your car, it just kind of goes, oh, Jen's a realtor. She's not a preschool teacher. She's not, selling antiques up at the shop up the street. So it's like, it's just, it's more just psychological to have like actually it's funny I've actually got a listing appointment tomorrow with one of my old preschool teachers mother-in-laws. So and like she's slowly seen me work and so now I'm kind of top of mind as a realtor instead of as a preschool teacher, which is the only way she saw me 15 years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
So
so cool. I would always, if I had one on my car, I'd be so paranoid that I make sure I'm driving perfectly all the time.
yeah,
Um,
no, I mean, it's like, you feel a little bit cheesy. I mean, and I will be honest, so much of the stuff I did, I'm realizing now to make me a lot of deals. I actually don't do a lot of the things. And it doesn't mean that I won't, but it's just, I mean, I used to always wear the name tag everywhere I went for like the first year, and I probably haven't worn it now for like 5 years. But I will say that like I remember going to a grocery store, and it's just a simple little thing on there. And I was very new in real estate, and this lady that was in the neighborhood, she was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were a realtor." And I just, obviously we don't really need to wear them. It's just self promotion. But I just said, oh, yeah, I just got off work, like doing nothing, right? But she doesn't need to know that. And so about a month later, she reached out because she was getting a divorce and needed to sell her house. And so since she had seen me at the grocery store, I'm a realtor, I was the one to call.
yeah. I think
So.
it's to your point, everyone that we encounter has their own perception of who we are to them.
Mhm.
And so those little details, the car magnet, the name tag, it's not only like
Mhm.
brand recognition, but to your point, it's setting that tone for them of who you are. And I love that.
Mhm.
I do
Well,
want
and
to
I
go
think
ahead.
I think there's also this, and this is one of the things that I still deal with is like the realtor who's successful. Is she blonde? Is she fabulous? Is she driving a white Lexus? Is she all those things? And I'm not. And so sometimes I feel like I'm kind of a loser agent because I'm not those things. But at the end of the day, I feel like there are clients out there for all of us. I remember hearing a woman talk years ago. She was like a country agent. She had a real strong Southern accent. She was super casual, jeans and a sweater. And she did a ton of transactions. And I remember her saying, you know, I'm just myself. And that has a market. Like that is a market. So whoever you are, you're going to attract different people. And so, yeah, some of my clients they might just be a little different than the ones that want the whole glamour and the whole, like, I don't know. I think you guys kind of know what I'm talking about.
Right. Well,
It's
and
like,
for
that's not
accountability
me. But,
too.
mhm,
Like I think sometimes it's easy to look at the agents that show up on social media and things like that and say, but who are you really? And I think that at the end of the day, people just want to be seen in who they are. And if they see that you are exactly you, then it's a lot easier to meet them in that.
yes.
And
So just be authentic,
yeah.
be yourself. Yeah.
Well, that's perfect because that's kind of what I want to talk about next. I know
Mhm.
you dipped a toe into it talking about mindset. I realized when I
Mhm.
was writing these that I very often save that topic for the end of these conversations, but it's the
Mhm.
foundation of it all. And so I know
Mhm.
you've talked a good bit about it, but when we talked initially, one of the things that you said is that although you have a ton of experience, you still feel new at this every day. And so I wanted you to talk about that. I also just wanted you to talk about what do you do on those days where it's hard or when you're going through those seasons of wondering where your next deal is and what you're cut out, like if you're cut out for it. Talk about mindset and kind of what is your foundation that you come back to when you need something to come back to.
I mean, I feel like just putting yourself into a really good space is important. So, like, my little home office is nice. I come in here in the morning, I've got my coffee, I light a candle, I have my little incense diffuser, put on some soft music. So it's like I've made it into like my Zen happy place instead of the office being a bad place. And sometimes it's just like kind of, especially when you're kind of slow, take some extra time for walks with the dog and things like that. But definitely set aside still some time to do some of the outreach that I think is really important. I know that, like, um, about a month ago, so ago, I didn't really have a lot going on, so I did the little, home happy anniversary cards for clients, just kind of like gave myself like a task to do, because it can be kind of overwhelming when you have so many things that you could or should be doing. But we need to feel productive. And sometimes it can just be like such a small thing, but then, you set aside an hour, you do some little cards, and then you kind of go, oh, I did something real estatey today. And then you can kind of then go for a walk with your dogs or do other things, and just tap in a little bit every day, but not try not to get like overwhelmed by all the things you could or should be doing. Just pick one thing a day and then just do that one little thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it all creates momentum, to your point.
Yeah.
When you first got into the business, one of the things that you mentioned was
Mhm.
your mindset around being so excited and then realizing that what was next?
Oh, yeah.
So can we talk about that for a moment? I think
Yeah.
that's something that
Yeah. My
everyone
very first
relates to.
client it was a flip in Durham. And it was, a friend of a friend who I gave this, and it was so much work. So much work. It was one of those ones that's just crazy. There was like a lawsuit involved, and had to change the lot line, had to get signatures from a mobile notary like 9 o'clock at night. It had to do like, it was like all the crazy things. But anyways, I was so excited because I was like, yay, I'm gonna finally get like my $4,000, you know, after working for what? It's like 4.5 months. I was like, oh my God. Um, and then just suddenly realizing, oh my gosh, I thought I was gonna be, like popping champagne and like super excited after my first transaction, throw a party. That's really what I thought I was going to be doing. And then it was like, no, I mean, you close on Friday. Well, what have you got going on next week? You got nothing. So it's like somewhere in the middle of the transaction, I realized, oh my gosh, I need to be doing more to, you can't just rest on your laurels from that one thing. And I have to say, I was really, really motivated when I very first started. I was a little bit, my father-in-law said I was possessed. Um, and so I remember that first transaction I did great. Like I was like going full steam, even considering that it was a flip and Durham. It's like not really my zone, not really my thing, but I was door knocking, I was meeting with the neighbors, I was, providing gift baskets, I had a raffle, and out of that transaction, this is what everyone wants. I ended up with a buyer and a seller. So, I mean, that's what every transaction, if you just did that, I mean, just think of like every transaction you have builds two more, and those two, we get a four, an eight, right? Do the math. I was like, that ends up being a lot of transactions. But so I remember I met this really nice couple at the open house, talked with them quite a bit. I did a raffle, and I find that when I do a raffle, I actually get real information on the cards, not, you know, whatchamacallit at gmail.com. Like it's actually like a person's actual email address and their actual phone number because they want to win the $25 Target card or a card to a brewery or whatever. And so they actually put the real information in there, which is nice because then you can put them into your database. You can reach out to them. So I ended up turning a buyer into my client from the open house. And then I also sent out postcards. Um, on that one, I actually sent out postcards before the house went on the market, like as a come to my open house postcard, which I'm too cheap to do now, but I was like super fired up. but some people who lived in the neighborhood came to the open house from my postcard, and then they wanted me to list their house. Bingo. I'm like, great. So, anyways, I don't always take my own advice, but that's my advice.
I
If
mean,
you
it's
can at all.
when we were talking before that, I think we all focus on lead generation and we know the impact of nurturing our database and but the way that you said it is always my goal to take my current deal and turn it into another deal so that I'm not
Mhm.
spending all of my time working outside of this transaction for another transaction. What can I do that helps provide value to my current sellers or my current buyers and also be
Mhm.
feeding my pipeline in the future? And it's so true because there's only so much time in the day. And so, um,
Yes. My favorite one, I remember in probably like 2016, 2017, I put a house on the market. It was like a referral. Didn't even know the lady, but put her house on the market. And then I actually saw that the neighbor was out there doing some things. So I talked to the neighbor. Well, guess what? She was listing her house too. And I'm like, that's me. So then I, I ended up listing her house. So now I've got like a home, under contract and then coming soon. And then next to her, I saw this old guy who's out there. He's doing his yard work. And I talked to him. He goes, well, I'm going to be selling too. I was like, yes. So I had 3 yard signs in a row. And it was just because I talked to them. It's, I went over there, just chatted a little bit, invited them to the open house, let them know I was there. I mean, I'm kind of a fool because I really should have worked that neighborhood real hard then for the next year or two, and I could have farmed that. that. But anyways, it just
but
kind
you
of.
farmed yours. So will you talk about that? Because you absolutely crushed that one. How did you start building that momentum? And
Well, I mean, I will say that it was really about like just getting super involved. So one of the things I did was I arranged a network. We had a clubhouse in the neighborhood. So I arranged a networking at the clubhouse event, which involved me, guess what? Going from house to house, meeting people, giving them the invite. Are you a car salesman? Are you an insurance provider? Like, let's all get together and have drinks at the clubhouse. So I arranged that. And that was just a side note, like, hey, oh, by the way, I'm a realtor, right? And then did a ladies' night out. And so, you kind of all get together. And quite frankly, real estate just always comes up because people are like, hey, what you been up to? I'm like, just so busy with selling houses, And and then of course they always want to know because women love real estate. They're like, how's the market? What are you seeing these days? What's the best paint color for this? And da da da. I'm thinking about doing my house. Would you come by and give me some pointers? And then also a book club. Um, I didn't get it going, but there was an existing one that I just kind of bounced into. And so that has kind of paid off with a couple of deals. And then of course I'm so sad because I'm not part of that neighborhood anymore. So I just don't have the pull, but I would, send out postcards probably once a season, especially if it's like I just sold a house. It's just sold, just sold, just sold. Um, and then also just getting really involved with the neighborhood Facebook page. And one of the main ways I got involved, of course, I used to be able to post my, listings and stuff, but also promoting contractors, so just being super active. And then my contractors love me because they're like, I mean, this one guy, Flavio, I don't want to share him with everybody though. Um, but he's like, oh my God, like you built my business. Like he's always in there. You always see his van going from house to house, and it's like, 500 houses, and he's probably done something for everybody in there. But yeah, if anyone ever needs an electrician, it's like, oh, I'm a realtor. This is my favorite electrician. He does work for all my clients. Everyone loves him. It can just be like kind of a natural plug for yourself when you're also helping people and helping your contractors.
Yeah,
So,
and it's these are people that we work with all the time, but as a regular
mhm.
consumer, it can be so overwhelming for any of those to say who's actually going to show up, who's going to charge me a fair price, who's going to overquote me. And so those little
Mhm.
things go so far. You just remove in the day and age of having so much to do, you remove one thing for someone else to do. What
Yeah,
advice would you give to someone that wants to farm a neighborhood? Obviously, it's quite helpful when it's your own. Um,
yeah, yeah.
if
I've
you
heard
were
of
just
some
getting
realtors.
started, what would you say?
I feel like finding one that really is like in sync with kind of like your vibe and what you feel comfortable with actually is pretty important. Um, so I've actually been thinking about kind of doing a transition. I'm now a little bit older. So maybe I might want to shift towards like a 55 plus community because I think older people like working with older agents. Not to be terrible, I'm just saying. Or I don't know. I guess I could try to get into like the luxury home market. It just maybe it's a little bit my mindset. It's still like, but I kind of like doing the average, right? So like right now, the average home is 450 to 475 in Wake County, right? And so like that's kind of the sweet spot, I think, because you see like more transactions going on. And I kind of don't enjoy always like the super cheapo house, and I also don't always enjoy the super luxury house, but kind of like that average house has a lot more turnover usually.
Yeah, and once you get
And
familiar with the neighborhood, then also you know the common issues or the type of
mhm,
siding. And so I'm sure that would kind of position you as even more of an expert when you are going into the listing
yeah,
appointments. Have you guys done
yeah.
X, Y, and Z? I know your neighbors, a lot of your neighbors have done this or um,
Right, right. And I've found that like my open houses that I've done in the neighborhoods, especially that I'm most familiar with, have gone really well. And one of the things I've told to clients is I think one of the reasons is because I'm really invested. I'm not. I'm not doing it for someone else that I'm like not as familiar. Like I could do an open house for someone in Holly Springs, but like I'm not going to know the area. I'm not going to be as outspoken. And I like to engage with people at the open house and tell them about things that they might not know about, you know. So knowing where the greenway trails are and the schools and the did you know the hospital's right across the street? I mean, did you know that this park is right here? Did you know you could do fishing and biking and all this stuff that's like right there? And a lot of times people are just doing open houses and they have no idea. They're just kind of kicking tires all over the place. Um, and so they kind of like your enthusiasm. And I feel like enthusiasm actually can kind of build too, especially in a competitive environment where you've got maybe quite a few people at the open house, but you also have active buyers, possibly with or without their agents in the house at the same time. And so if they see kind of like this fun activity, they're more likely to offer a higher price on the house because they feel like this is a frenzy and we have got to get in highest and best quick because this house is going to go. But they may not know that half the people are neighbors, half the people are just kicking tires. But if they're all kind of moving around and engaging, then I think they could potentially drive their price up.
Yeah, that's
So,
so true.
I like,
So on that note of listings and hosting open houses, I'd love to talk about your listing strategy. Will you tell us about all of that, like from appointment through fruition, but especially the listing appointment? Because I know there's endless ways to do everything in this business, but especially the buyer consultations and the listing appointments, people can do them so differently. But that alone, do you show up with numbers? How much are you walking through the home with them? How much of it is just a conversation? I would love to hear your strategy on that and then bringing people to market because obviously you have
yeah.
staging experience.
Yeah. So, well, one of the first things I do, I'm actually super low key. So I don't have a PowerPoint production. There's not like a whole bunch of laminated flyers. I mean, I guess I'm a little, I don't know, low tech, but I just get the point across, kind of have just like a little folder I bring in. And I just use the CMA that I use off of Paragon and I use it with the very best houses that have sold in the area. And then so I've got that flyer that I start out with. And a lot of times there is one house that's like very similar to theirs that either just closed or it's under contract or active. And so, like the listing appointment I'm going on tomorrow, I got the little CMA, but I've also got oh, this is your neighbor's house. It's the same square footage. It's across the street, right? Well, now I know it's closing at the end of the month. So that's one to watch. So I'm not putting a price on it. I'm just saying, well, I mean, obviously, I've never been into this lady's house. So I also have no idea the condition. So for me to have actual numbers is basically impossible. But, you know, I usually what I'll be doing is on my way to the listing appointment, I'm going to preview this house if I can. It's an open door. So I think I could still pop in even though it's under contract. And that will help me to kind of gauge, all right, this is 525. Then when I go across the street to her house, I'll have like a better sense of, you know, what we're looking at. And then I put together a seller net sheet and I have three prices. So the first price is as is. So, and as is kind of usually being not great, not great, needs updates, carpet's old, weird paint, right? And then I've got a mid price here, and this price is paint, carpet. Like it's just going to be clean, it's going to be good. That's probably what the open door house was. Probably not incredible, good enough. Some cheap LVP, some agreeable gray, and we're done. And then there's the third price, which is the whoa, oh my God, did you flip this house yourself price? I have a hunch that she's not there, just a hunch. She's probably right in there. So I think she's probably right here right now. But if she wants to be up to the open door house, she needs to do a couple of those things. She needs to do the flooring and the paint, maybe change out a couple fixtures. And then, because chances are a woman who's about 80 probably doesn't have the most updated house. I could be wrong, but if it's, she could surprise me. She could surprise me. And so then I kind of get a sense from her on, well, like, so I had a listing appointment about a week ago, and that client said, well, I want that price. Of course you do. Of course you do. And so, and I had walked through her house, and she said, which one of these do you think I'm at? I said, well, I think we can get you to this one, the middle one, the 525. And she says, well, how do I get to the 550? And I'm like, remember when we walked through your kitchen and you had all original white appliances from the 90s? Remember how I said stainless is preferred? That would be a must if you want to get to that price. So you don't get to do the white appliances from the 90s and get the top price, right? I actually, sadly, I took a terrible listing. I'll be honest. I don't always heed my own advice. So I gave this guy 3 prices, right? The as is price. So he wanted to do the as is price and then price it, guess where? Beyond this. And so guess what? We've been on the market 3 weeks, and how many showings? 1. How much interest? 0. So anyways, I just shot myself in the foot, but I don't even know why I took that listing, quite frankly, because it was stupid. And I keep telling myself I'm not going to do that. And then, alas, here I am. And I have given him my advice, my recommendations, and he is heeding his own advice. I don't know. He says
Well,
it's because of this, it's because of that. I'm like, no, it's price, preparation. Price, preparation, that's all it is.
well, and I
And
love that strategy of you're laying it out for them and showing them what it would take. I have a few
right.
questions, but one in the comments real quick. Does your commission change with each tier?
No, no, because I always give 100% no matter what. I just so and I'll tell them that's like the next step. So the next step, I show them the seller process, which is just a really simple outbreak. I'm like, here's where we are right now. We're at the beginning point. And so we're going to analyze the value of your house as time gets closer. Because sometimes you're meeting with people, like I met with some people in October and we're listing their house in April. So whatever I told them in October is moot. It's like, that doesn't even make sense. So, like, you need to kind of continue to watch the market. I reached out to these people from October in about February and I said, now we're watching the market. Now we're watching your neighbors. Like, there's no point in looking at what happened in September when their neighbor might hit the market next week and then we'll have a better sense of what's going on at this moment in time. But so I kind of let them know, kind of based on what they decide to do, what their pricing is going to be. And we will reevaluate as the time gets closer. And sometimes I don't set the price until the day before going on the market, just based on, oh, did you see this? Or, oh, this neighbor went on higher than we were going to go. So now we can go a little bit higher. Anyway, so then just kind of break out like that they're going to get their house ready with my preparation ideas. And then we're going to do staging. And so that's me. I always provide just like a little hands-on prep for them to kind of reevaluate where they want their furniture to be. And then I usually either use their items or else bring in my own items to make the house like just look as good as humanly possible. So like my last listing in Massey Point, they had this big picture of like a monkey in a red hat above their bed. And yes, the house could sell. It could sell, but it's a little off-putting. Like, why do you have a giant monkey picture in a red hat above your soothing bedroom? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I from Home Goods, nothing fancy, just got like a really nice like landscape picture, put it above there, added some matching pillows just to add a little fluff, put an orchid next to the bed. So I'm always adding things like that just because sometimes people just need a little help. Some people need a lot of help, but some people can pretty much handle things themselves, and you can provide notes. And so what I do is I provide them with notes that are like room by room, like all the front of the house. You're going to power wash. You're going to add mulch. You're going to add a new welcome mat. You're going to paint your front door. You're going to do this. And I just go room by room. And then at the last minute, I come through and I just work my magic. And then and that's right before photos. And then, but I think it's helpful for people to see like on a grid too, like how everything is going to go, like all the way from beginning all the way to the end. And here's where you can talk about due diligence, because people usually can't remember. They have no idea what you're talking about. And anyways, so I think that's really it in a nutshell. When I have a listing appointment, it's just talking about a few topics. I like to wrap everything up in about 45 minutes to an hour, because I don't like to spend a lot of time kind of like overstaying my welcome. I don't set an exact price. I ask a lot of questions about their timeline and their ideas, which is super important. And just kind of getting to know each other. And then I usually don't bring in the paperwork for them to just sign on the dotted line right there. What I do is I follow up a couple days later and just say, so where are you at? I'm ready to go whenever you are. And I can be ready next week, or I can be ready 5 months from now. You guys just let me know. And then you can follow up with, and have you decided to do some of the updates we talked about? No pressure either way, just kind of like getting them engaged. And then once they've decided to move forward, you send them the listing paperwork, and then they go onto your board.
Yeah.
So I'm like totally old school. So I've got like my, I don't know if you could see this,
Uh-huh.
but this is my little listing board. And then these are my buyers. I just have like little scraps of paper. And so every morning my process is I get my coffee, I get my candle, get everything nice. And then I just kind of go one by one, because I like to have the visual, like, okay, Chala Court. And I literally talk out loud to myself. I say, okay, they're painting, they're getting ready, they're getting the moving truck. Okay. Whew. All right. And then I go to the next one. And I usually try to engage with them as much as possible. So like the people who are getting the moving truck, I reached out to them yesterday. So everything's still on track for the moving truck to come on Friday, and just to kind of let them know that we are holding hands, we are moving through this process together. And so I kind of work through all my sellers, and then I kind of move on to my buyers in the day, and I go on to Paragon, and I just look at like all the newest listings, and I'll only send something that looks on point to them, because I want them to think that, and to know that I'm not just sending them whatever. I'm sending them very specific houses for them, because they're also looking on Zillow. So they're all looking in other areas. But so for you to send them like 10 different things that don't even make sense, I just kind of like to really engage on Thursday and Friday. And I say, oh, this is my top pick of the week. And would you like to take a look on Saturday? Try to set that up Thursday or Friday morning, set up some showings for the weekend. Um, and that's just kind of my way of engaging with the buyers. And some of these people are like at different phases too. So, like one of the buyers, they're kind of like barely dipping their toes. So, like, I noticed that one of their neighbors listed their house yesterday. So, rather than sending them a house that could work for them, I'm just like, I sent them, oh, hey, your neighbor's house just went on the market. They're pricing at 650. We should watch that, and so when the time comes, and once they see that their neighbor sells for 650, then they're going to be like, ah, maybe we should start looking into buying a little bit more. So you're kind of like pushing them in that direction by just like little like tidbits of things they might like, and also things that might kind of push them towards selling.
Yeah.
I don't
One
know.
thing that you had mentioned when we were on our call the other day
Mhm.
was about pinpointing a price. And obviously you mentioned a lot about that on the sell side, but you're just as diligent with it on the buy side, and you even make a
Mhm.
note to come back to the ones that you guys didn't win. Will you just
Mhm.
talk about that for a moment? Because I think that's so impactful for just your own knowledge and
Mhm.
also just kind of that reminder to both your clients and yourself, like I am spot on and I know my craft, and also it helps you read the
Mhm.
market. Will you talk about kind of that process and how that impacts
Yeah,
the business?
yeah. I mean, yeah, so I have some clients that they lost out on new construction last week. I don't know, can you believe it? New construction, bidding war, total nightmare, but whatever. So they lost out on a bidding war for new construction, and they're kind of like back to the drawing board. So what I did to kind of rally the troops again is I let them know, because they've been looking since the beginning of last summer, but she wants just the right house. So and they'll be ready to go once it's perfect, but it has to be perfect. Um, but there have been ones that they've kind of considered, and so just so that they can kind of better understand the market, I went ahead and sent them, like, remember that one that was in the summertime that we looked at? It closed at 1.1. Interesting. And like, oh, remember that one that we liked? It sold at 1.2. So they're starting, me too. It's like we're both learning like where things are actually landing. So if you're qualified for 1.1 and you can't go to 1.2, that helps you to kind of get like a little sense of, oh, maybe I'm not going to be able to afford that 1.2. Maybe I need to be a little more realistic in some of my expectations. That if 1.1 looks like that, and that needs some kitchen updates and it wasn't perfect, maybe something needs to shift. Either the price point needs to go up or the expectations need to be kind of zeroed in. But it also, I think, just showing them the numbers helps them to see it without you being mean. Without, it's just,
You're
hey,
educating both of you. Yeah.
I'm just educating you on, that's interesting. Interesting. But you're not saying, see, I told you.
Yeah.
See, I
Well, and it
told you it
also
was.
helps in those bidding war situations to know, we've got an intuition and we advise our clients, but then
Mhm.
what did win it, and so being able to look back after a
Mhm.
month and say, okay, actually I was spot on, or oh, that's surprising. It was even more than I thought, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
We've got about 10 minutes left. I want to
Oh,
respect everyone's time. I
that's
know
okay.
we've had so much, I have so many more questions, but I want
Oh
to
my
get to the
God.
chat. So I'm going to ask a few of the ones that are in the chat right now. But if you, and I have plenty of others, but if you
Oh
guys have
God.
questions that you've been holding out on, by all means, put them in the chat or raise your hand and I'll get to you in just a minute. But Dana asked a question of how much do you typically see your sellers invest in preparing their home for market?
It really can vary. I mean, I've got this guy right now. He didn't want to do anything, simply nothing. So zero investment. And that's his choice.
Right.
But that was zero, and investment was supposed to be a 599 price. And he wants to be at 665. So we're off. We're just off. And so, you know, sadly, and I wrote him an email on Monday, third weekend without showings, that the market has spoken. I'm saying all the same things. I said, revert back to the information I provided you at the beginning of our relationship, and it has not changed. And clients do not want to buy a house at 665 that's overpriced, that they then have to put over $100,000 worth of work into. They won't do it, and they will not come and look because they don't want Formica counters. They don't want blue cabinets. They don't want your old carpet. They don't want a house that they, have to power wash and do the yard work and all the stuff. They don't want that. So you have to price it accordingly. So it's just frustrating when you're dealing with someone like that. And like I said, I really probably shouldn't have taken the listing. But I feel like in the last few years, people have been probably doing like around 15,000, to bring them up. And they always ask, and that's always such a hard question to answer. What if if we put in 15,000, does that guarantee that we're going to make this amount? It's like, and I really, don't you guys just wish you could do both? I kind of wish you could take one house and just do both and just see, like literally see what happens. But unfortunately, we can't do that. So all we can work with is data that is out there. You can see neighbors that tried that and their outcomes. You can see neighbors that did all the things and that outcome. And so it's a little relative, but because you're dealing with different lots and different styles and layouts and all of that. But at least you can have like a general ballpark. So I've got clients coming up next week that they power washed, they fixed some of the trim that was really bad. They painted some. They did paint the cabinets like I told them to. They're not happy with it, but I think buyers will be happy with it. So it's like, sorry. And they changed out the carpet. And so I think that they probably put in maybe 10,000 or so to
And that's always
probably,
hard because you can walk into a house and be like, man, it could have so much. But also, everyone's financial situation is different. Some people literally don't have anything that they can invest. And I
right.
will always recommend paint and carpet, like you said, but going above that can be a little tricky to your point because you don't know. Hopefully, I mean, there's certain things that will always help,
Mhm.
but they're definitely not going to get dollar for dollar. And so, yeah, that can be
Right.
hard. It almost feels like a liability to be like, how much do I recommend when none of us know until
Yeah.
that buyer comes. And
Yeah. Yeah. I've got some clients right now, and I really recommended them doing as much as humanly possible with their master bathroom because it was real bad. Um, and she said it's just not in the cards. And so, because she was like, Flavio came out and he was saying like it's gonna be 9,000 for a shower redo with new glass enclosure and the whole thing. Then it's like, okay, well, she said that's not possible. Okay, so with their financial situation, it's like, okay, readjust. If you absolutely cannot do the shower, then at least we're going to do the walls and the mirrors and the light fixtures that are rusty. You got to do like some of the things. And I asked her if she could afford a new vanity. She said absolutely not. So maybe you just paint the existing ones a really cute green blue color that kind of gives it a fun pop. So trying to do all the things on a budget, and maybe, okay, now we're not doing the glass doors on the shower. We're doing a rod and a curtain. okay. It's not great, but it's gonna have to do. It's at least it's not gross. The key
And I
is
think
not
it's a
gross.
delicate dance too of we can advise our clients endlessly, but at the end of the day, like we also can't be more invested than they are. But our
Right.
hearts always show up that way. We can't help it. But
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's
And
always
I
a
think
good
that
reminder.
yeah, the key that I've learned over time, because I used to always be way too hands-on, where it's like I was overseeing a project. I was doing no, 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 no. This is their house, it's their money, it's their time, it's their responsibility. My job is an advisor, an educator, but I am not the one cleaning out a garage. I am not hiring people. I am not paying people.
Correct.
You know? So I really try to do much better about making that super clear because let me tell you, I've been burned a few times.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yuka
yeah.
has a question. Yuka, what you got?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing as Kate. I always have a little bit of fear when I recommend, hey, you should update, say, white appliance to stainless silver, which costs at least 3,000 or 5,000.
Mhm.
And what if the house doesn't sell? Right? So I'm
Right.
wondering how you cover your butt. Still, like, okay, well,
Yeah.
no guarantee. I recommend that, but there's no
Right.
guarantee just because you
There's,
invest 5,000 bucks, you're not going to get
yeah.
10,000 bucks, for example, or maybe waste your money in a way. So
Right.
here's how you carry the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with this lady last week, I mean, I just simply told her that, none of the houses that are priced at 550, none of them have white appliances. They just don't, they just don't. And so, and she said she wanted to get that 550 price point. So I said that, well, that's what you're going to need to do. She says, but it costs 5,000. I know. I know that. I mean, I can't guarantee that she's going to make 25,000 more, but I think it's pretty safe to say that she would make 10,000 more than she would without those appliances. Because I think with those white appliances, especially the burner, the like the old burner stove, it's like kind of like a dent in the side, like, oh my God. It's like that, it just says fixer upper,
I was gonna say,
so
as you
it's
were saying that, what I was thinking is,
pulls
I
it
always
down.
have that phrase of, I tell buyers when I'm in the home, the way that people prepare the things that we can see says a lot about how they take care of the things we can't see. And I say that same thing to sellers. And so as you were saying that, I was like, oh, true. It's not even just about the appliances and having them upgraded. It's about what does it say to the buyer on a subconscious level if they didn't take the time to make those updates and they've got a dent in the stove and it's probably impossible to fully clean at this point, then subconsciously are they going to say, okay, did they tend to their HVAC? Did they do these other small updates? Or if they did do updates, to what tier of vendor did they hire? So that's a really
Mhm.
interesting thought.
I know. I know. It's such a tough one. I mean, I feel like they are doubling their money. You put in 5, you make 10. I feel like that's pretty safe to say with appliances. That I'm sure you've probably seen there are different rankings on what you get back, versus what you put in. So like, painting your front door, changing out your front door, you end up getting like triple the money that you put into it. So it's like really a great investment. That front door is so important. Whereas there are other things that you'll see where it's like changing out a toilet. Okay, I don't know that's going to actually increase your house at all. You just spent $2,000 on all new toilets for all your bathrooms. Well, good job, good job. Like I don't, yeah, no one's buying your house because of your toilets,
Yeah,
but
unfortunately,
there
they do
are
care
gonna
about the pretty things that they can see.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And well, it's so funny because like a lot of times I don't know if I should even say this, but like certain people will be more focused on like the crawl space and the gutters and the drainage and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of buyers even more are looking at the kitchen. They're looking at the master bathroom. They're looking at does this make me feel happy? And they're not getting into the nitty gritty crawl space. It's like that's kind of more of an afterthought, or the garage is more of an afterthought. But it's those first impressions when you walk in the door and, oh, you wanted to sing.
I've got one last question because we're right at time, but I always am curious. You do so much for your clients. Real estate can be very much a full-time job, if not beyond. You've been in this for 10, 11 years at this point.
Mhm.
How do you balance your work life situation? Like, how do you show up fully for work and also manage spending time with your family? And how do you balance all of that? Because it's obvious that you're incredible at
Yeah.
what you do. How do you turn it off
Oh,
and be present?
well, I feel like it's so easy for me now because I'm like an empty nester, and I'm like not super busy. Like I'm busy, but in a nice way. But I will say I feel like especially in 2017 when I had that crazy year where I did 52 transactions, I was also doing carpool for 2.5 hours a day. I was, was like trying to, have dinner with the family on a Friday night. And my husband was getting angry because I'm on my phone all the time. And I mean, I was gaining weight. And I have to say, that year, as well as I did have like a lack of balance. I was a little bit obsessed and like hyper focused on just work, work, work all the time. And I feel like right now, it's I have like a really good balance. I mean, I probably spend like half the day, like an 8 hour day, half of it actually working, and half of it, going to Pilates or going to happy hour. So I feel like I have like a really nice balance right now. I know
And that's
you'll
the
have to ask me
benefit
again
of
next
keeping your
week.
momentum too. Of, once you've got the momentum going and you're, like you said at the front end, taking one deal and leading it into your next one, then as long as you stay with all of that, then you can show up more fully in life. Brian is in here. He said, I think it's okay to give advice by saying this is what I would. Oh, he's talking about the investment. But yeah, I think, showing up for yourself, it's what it's all
Yeah.
here for. So we've got to focus
Yeah.
on ourselves.
Yeah. We have to take good care of ourselves first and foremost, because if you're happy and healthy, I think you'll exude that, and you'll have the confidence to go into a listing appointment or meet with people and do well. Whereas if you're kind of dragged down, your energy is going to be dragged down, and people are going to be put off by that. So it all comes together, right? It's all
Owe it
back
to
to
yourself
mindset
and to
again.
them to show up happy and healthy. Yeah. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
your time, Jen. You're truly a delight. I
Thank
could talk to you
you.
all day, and you always keep me laughing. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
All
And thank
right.
you to all of you for showing up today. We know you're busy, and these are some of my favorite sessions because truly there's no better way to learn than from each of us. We all do things differently in our own unique way, but there's also so much to share. So thank you for who you are, Jen, and for showing up today and sharing your knowledge. Have a great one, y'all. Bye.